The 1% are the main drivers of climate change, but it hits the poor the hardest, Oxfam report.
Here's a summary of the article.
The richest of the rich are polluting the world and driving climate change, while the poorest of the poor suffer the greatest consequences, according to a new report published Monday by Oxfam International. The richest 1% of the global population have used 2 times as much carbon as the poorest 50% over the last 25 years, the nonprofit's report says. Worldwide sales of private jets soared when commercial travel was banned, the Oxfam report says. While no one is immune, the consequences will continue to be more devastating for low- and middle-income countries, which are most at risk and face the highest climate-fueled displacements, and within these countries for women living in poverty, who typically bear greater responsibility for tasks that are made more difficult by climate change, including sourcing food and water, the Oxfam report says. The fight against inequality and the fight for climate justice are the same fight, says the Oxfam report says. Governments need to implement policies that help reduce overall demand for energy and accelerate the use of renewable energy, according to Oxfam, which means ending subsidies to fossil fuel industries, as well as forcing banks to end investment in fossil fuels and ramp up investment in sustainable energy sources, the report says. Further, says Oxfam, governments should implement scaled taxes on carbon emissions, luxury-related consumption that drives carbon emissions, such as frequent or business-class flights or gas-guzzling large vehicles, according to the report, should be taxed at a higher rate for the carbon consumption.
This post received a score of 75,000, with an upvote ratio of 86%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
The 1% are the main drivers of insert bad thing, but it hits the poor the hardest.
I'm beginning to notice a pattern here.
Yeah, I feel like I've read this headline dozens of times. Isn't it pretty much always the case?
Yup, it is. The rich does things that affect the poor, a tale older than centuries. The rich use the poor to get to the top, in most cases.
Wherever there is great property there is great inequality. For one very rich man there must be at least 500 poor, and the affluence of the few supposes the indigence of the many. Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations.
1 to 500 would be a huge improvement today.
2016. A bipartisan climate solutions caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives was formed, eventually reaching a peak of 45 Republicans and 45 Democrats in 2018. 2019. A bipartisan climate solutions caucus in the U.S. Senate is formed, and has now grown to 7 Republicans, 6 Democrats and 1 independent. 2020. There are a bunch of bipartisan climate bills in the U.S. Congress, with both Rs and Ds co-sponsoring. Update December 2020. Some of these bipartisan climate bills are climate offensive.
Carbon tax please.
Carbon tax. Citizens Climate Lobby.
I cannot find the original report. Link to Oxfam website in the article redirects to a paper about coronavirus impact, not climate change. Was it removed?
Although the article quotes the most recent inequality report by Oxfam, there is also a report specifically on inequality and climate change from September 2020, as well an EU-specific report on the same topic from December 2020. I believe the main findings on the link between inequality and carbon emissions were already published in the September 2020 report. And the goddamn 1% are the causation of climate change, and they tax the citizens. They get revenue in 4D.
Remember, this is global scale. The fact that you are here makes it very likely that you are a part of the 1%.
Global 1% is like everyone over $17 per hour.
Incorrect. On a global scale, an individual must have upwards of $744,400 in combined income, investments, and personal assets to rank in the top 1% of the world's wealthiest individuals. Quote opening square bracket.
It's important to remember that even though you aren't part of the top 1%, you are still contributing to climate change more than the average human if you live in a developed country. To understand why the comparison in the article sucks, check out, from, obviously poor people and people living in developing nations don't pollute as much, and they'll always pollute less than everyone else. As we fight poverty, these people will get reach a higher standard of living, and start polluting, either by conventional means such as cars, using energy for heating, cooling, or by consuming more electronics that demand huge amounts of energy to be produced. The takeaway from this report shouldn't be the 1% pollutes a lot, they definitely do, but the takeaway should be that carbon emissions and wealth are intricately connected, and we need to fight pollution and overconsumption on all wealth levels if we want to fight climate change and still manage to increase standards of living worldwide.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.